Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Today we have a very special guest in a very special episode around the IronViz. So I have Kathryn in the house to talk about her amazing performance on stage. So over to you, Kathryn, to give a little intro about yourself.
Hello, happy to be here, honoured to be here. I'm Kathryn, I'm from Scotland, but I've been in Belgium for the past 6 years, working for a company called Vizzes, focused on Tableau for clients. Only recently did I start doing more Tableau in my free time. So I entered one of the Viz for Social Good things, and I loved the community aspect of it, everyone sharing their feedback and giving you positive praise and being a generally safe space. So that was really nice. And then for IronViz, at my company, we were trying to encourage people to enter. And I was one of the people trying to push others to do it. So I thought, well, it'd be a shame to not do it myself, lead by example kind of thing. So then I entered and I didn't expect to get to the top 3, but yeah, here we are. It's been great.
So tell us a little bit about the months leading up to IronViz. I imagine that it's exhausting, but also very rewarding.
Yes, it was. We had a month to obviously find the data, make the dashboard and so on. And that was quite full on, but I thought, okay, push yourself and then you enter and then you're done. So I think it was Halloween and I was sitting there in my Minnie Mouse costume trying to get this finished before I went to a party. I thought, this is like just the final push, get it done. And then the reward for spending all that time and doing so well is to spend another month doing the same thing. Yeah, it was a lot, but it was exciting. And I think that my 2 competitors as well, they've been great. We were checking in with each other throughout the month, making sure we're all doing okay and we're not too stressed out. So it was a really nice experience.
Oh, that's really nice. It's also very exciting time for you because I know like during your IronViz introduction, you talk about you getting married this year.
Yeah, we got engaged in November. So that was after the IronViz entry. Not that I was expecting to be in the top 3, but then we got engaged. My fiance is from Tunisia. So we had planned a trip to Tunisia for me to choose my dress and to look at the venues and so on. And that was when we first got the data for IronViz. So yeah, it was a bit of a balancing act. But luckily, the wedding preparations have been quite chill from my side because I don't know the country that well. So it's been very much him planning it and me saying yes or no to things.
Well, that's easy. All right. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about the design because I know your design for the IronViz final was really spectacular. You had a whole airplane image just blending into the background and it's just amazing. How did that whole idea come about?
So I first of all wanted to look at nature versus machinery. That was supposed to be the theme to begin with. I went through a lot of ideas through the month, but that was the initial idea. Birds were flying in the sky way before we came along with our machines and airplanes. Not throwing shade in that. Obviously, I got to San Diego via an airplane. So yeah, I am also part of the problem.
And the funny thing is, when you guys were presenting that on screen, there was chatter on the floor that having a topic like this just before everyone is flying back from San Diego is probably not the best idea.
Yeah, no, we had a couple of discussions as well. After we met, we said, what did you think when you first got the data? We weren't really sure because the previous years there was a fun theme. And this one, we had to be careful because we don't want to scare anyone. And the message is a positive message anyway. There's rarely any major damage done by birds or wildlife and airplanes. So it's a nice message, but at the same time, it's something that might not even have been in anyone's mind. And now we've just put that in before they fly home. It wasn't easy. So yeah, my new friend, ChatGPT, I was trying to say, okay, we want birds versus planes, and this was the images that it came up with, and that was sort of what my basis was. And then I got a little bird image, and then we were looking at the plane, and I have to thank my supervisor for this one because initially I had a realistic looking plane on my dashboard, and it was her who said maybe we go for more of a schematic plane approach here so that it looks nicer, a bit cleaner on a dashboard. So that's how we got to this. In the data, there's lots of Boolean fields, so engine struck, wing struck, blah, blah, blah. and caused damage to this, this, and this. And for the wing, for example, we don't know if it's the left one or the right one. So that's how we ended up with half a plane. Yeah, ended up with
Well,
the half.
that's a pretty genius way of just simplifying the data.
Yeah, could look at it like that. It was out of necessity, but then once I did it, I thought I quite like that. And then I went through a few iterations with this at an angle, and then how would we put the data in, all these different. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on PowerPoint
Wow,
as well.
you went through a lot of iterations.
Yeah, that was the process.
No, that's awesome. So I think the second page is very interesting because you have a multi-layered map layer donut chart. Oh, that's a mouthful. And I love the way that you added additional map layer points just to add that border around each of the donut charts. I thought that was brilliant work. What was the thought process about you deciding on using a donut chart to represent that and a page animation, if you will, to go through the different years on how the damage evolved?
So I initially had a bit of a bubble plot, and as we went through the years, you could really, really see, okay, they're all coming down. 2016, the damage is stopping. Now, the chart I chose wasn't as clear, but sometimes you need to make decisions. I think on the IronViz stage, you want to be a bit more impressive than a scatter plot at some points. And I already used some basic charts as well. And I know that it was controversial, and I've seen comments on LinkedIn. Some people loved it, some people hated it, and that's fine. But yeah, I think I'd started with a couple of donuts, and then I started to think, okay, this actually does look like an airplane cockpit, and that's why I kept it. I thought it fits with the theme.
Yeah, I was going to say that it is very on point with the thematic design of it being a cockpit. It's really fun to just see it page through like the different years. So, and I think that's wonderful. The last page was something that was very interesting to me as well, because initially I thought that you would have imported a lot of images to make the map and everything, but everything was just native and you just used a very underused feature, buffer. But I think that was a very unique way of just adding that bit of storytelling. So you click on the different airports and it kind of pops up the map and seeing the vicinity of the airport itself. Walk us through a little bit on the thought process about the third page.
Yeah, so my third page, I changed it so often. So I had the first two quite early on, and then I was thinking, what would I do for my third page? The initial idea was to explore different species and say, because I think there was like deer, for example, are mostly hit in November because that's their mating season, and other birds are mostly hit during their migratory season. So you could see that in the data. So that was the initial idea. And then when I was looking at distance from the airport and altitude and so on, and how many wildlife are hit within a certain range, that's when I found out that 94% were hit within the 5 mile radius of the airport. I think it's just like during the process, I kept checking Google Maps, looking at different airports, and I was zooming in satellite view on Google Maps to see what was around. At that point, I thought, okay, I can just do this in Tableau, actually. We can see everything there. We can zoom in. I thought it'd be useful because it's what I was doing the whole time. I was zooming in. I was going, are there any fences around this airport? Is there a forest nearby? What's going on? Or the gulls, are they close to the sea? Maybe that was too close and I zoomed out afterwards. But yeah, I wanted to zoom in on the airport. And then I had the small buffer ring, but then I felt like the rest of the map was a bit distracting outside of the buffer. And that's when I added the shape on top to kind of blur that out.
Yeah, this is a very simple trick, but very, very effective, I would say. So what would you say is the most challenging part of your build?
I would say the multi-layered donut charts were definitely stressful to do in 20 minutes because of the manual sizing. I had to make sure that I'm not taking up too much space with one ring so that when we get to the middle, there's no space left. And also make sure it's kind of equal distance. So when you're under pressure, that is difficult to do. And the rest would just be deciding what to do with dirty data in there. There was a lot of unknown birds, unknown species, and I just took them out in the end. I nearly included them, decided to take them out. I think Bo and Ryan also took them out as well. But yeah, also finding a story, because again, this data was difficult to work with, and it was based on wildlife strikes that are reported, but it's not mandatory to report these strikes. So pilots don't actually need to do this. It's just strongly suggested that they do. So with the wildlife strikes rising, for example, that's due to more pilots reporting rather than more strikes. But we can't prove it. We can just come up with hypotheses, and yeah, maybe this happened, maybe that happened, we don't know. And yeah, there was also in 2016 where the damage fell. I still don't know why. And I looked at this for a while and I found different things. There was a paper published in this year, then the next year they fell. And so I think it was difficult just trying to think what the conclusion is. That was the main struggle for me.
I think with topics like this is always challenging because you don't have the expertise of the industry. If you work in aviation, then maybe you have like more context behind what has changed in the airplanes. Maybe the material of the airplanes were changed over the years to make it more sturdy against wildlife strikes or whatnot, or they change flight paths to avoid migration of the birds and everything. So I think it's always challenging. And I mean, for you guys that don't come from that industry, to be able to put together a story that is so engaging for the audience is really wonderful. Everyone had such a blast at the finals. This was probably the best IronViz in recent years, I would say. So congratulations to all three of you. This was an amazing stage act.
Yeah, we realised, I think, during rehearsals, and it was the first time we saw each other's dashboards, we each know that this wasn't easy data to work with. And we were like, you've smashed it. You've done so well. The other two, I know the struggles they went through, and being able to tell a story like that was just incredible, both of them. I was so delighted to share the stage with both of them. It's a shame, though, that on one hand, you're thinking, like, well done to both of you. You've done such a good job. On the other hand, you're thinking, well, don't really have much a chance of winning now if I'm up against these two. But it was fun anyway. We had a good time.
You had a fairly good chance, Kathryn.
Thank you for saying so.
I think this was the only year that everyone had conflicting choices. There was Team Kathryn, there was Team Bo, there was Team Brian, but it was just scattered. Like there wasn't a clear winner. So I love that. I know now that IronViz has kind of settled a little bit. So this is probably your most memorable Tableau conference ever.
I would say it's a totally different experience than just attending, because last year it was like a holiday, meeting everyone, going out every night, and it was amazing. This year was more work, I would say. It was amazing as well in a different way, but I didn't see much of the conference, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll see you next year again at the conference. Yeah. Cool. So is there anything that you are planning to work on in the next couple of months or the next year that you are excited to tease the audience a little bit?
I think for now, I'll take a step back from Tableau, but I have been speaking to Bo McCrindle, the winner, and we were saying maybe we can do a collaboration at some point. So yeah, maybe that's something to watch out for. We'll do a little project together.
That's interesting. We'll love to see that. So it's been really great having you, Kathryn, to talk about your IronViz journey, and we're really excited for you and looking forward to see more great stuff from you in the coming months.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at the next episode.